Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Coffee Break Technology Series. This is Jeff Doetzler, President of Alevity. We're super excited to have what seems to be a very important topic to many people, as this is probably one of our best attended coffee break sessions that we've hosted. So everyone wants to learn how to better collaborate, how to better use the tools that Microsoft has provided us, and really leverage Teams to go beyond chat. A couple reminders. First, we'd love to hear your questions so that we can provide some answers. Of course, we've got 25 minutes of content to talk about. We have 2.5 hours worth of content to talk about, but we can definitely fill the 25 minutes. If you have questions, please use the Q&A section of the Zoom control panel. You can also use chat, which is a great way to get in touch with us. We'll be monitoring that and can try to answer questions as they come up and as they make sense. And if there are questions that we can't get to, we'll reach out to you individually and make sure that we get all of your questions answered. Also, for attending, you'll be getting a $5 Starbucks gift card, so you should be seeing that later today in your inbox. So thanks again for joining us, and hopefully next time around for a coffee break series, you'll grab a cup of coffee and join us again as well. I'm really excited to have Paul Hager join us. Paul Hager is the Director of Solutions here at Alevity and was the owner and CEO of Information Technology Professionals that joined forces with Gordon Flesch back in March and have been working alongside Paul to build out Alevity, and we're super excited about the future. So Paul, good morning and thanks for joining.
Good morning, Jeff.
So Microsoft Teams. I think Teams came out some time ago, and I think many people looked at Teams and thought, well, this could be an interesting and a cool tool, maybe something we could leverage at some point down the future. And then all of our worlds turned upside down in March with a pandemic and shutdowns and lockdowns and shelter in places, and the need to collaborate and meet virtually and do video calls and chat with people working from home. All of a sudden, tools like this became much more important and much more valuable. So Paul, tell us a little bit about how Teams has impacted our clients and how Teams has kind of impacted business as a whole over the last year, but specifically over the last 6 months.
Yeah, Teams really had an interesting, genesis, right? I think it dropped about 2 years ago, and really people's initial reaction to it was, oh, they're renaming Skype. And that was kind of true and kind of entirely not true, right? It was a real foundational shift in the technology. They rewrote it from the ground up. It is not Skype. Skype was a separate product that they acquired really to get their user base. And then it kind of slowly developed, and people were like, oh yeah, it's a chat tool that we can use in our business. Our business doesn't really use chat. We like to send 100 emails every hour. And then yeah, we had a pandemic hit. And from a Microsoft perspective, as a managed Microsoft partner, we get the seat at the table with Microsoft to really hear the pulse of where that organization is going. And we heard very early on in March that Microsoft dropped everything and said, you only write code at Microsoft if you're writing code on Teams or you're writing code for Azure, because these are the only things that are going to matter during a pandemic. And the Azure code was to build contact tracing apps and IoT apps. And in Teams, it was to make collaboration possible in an increasingly remote workforce. And so that's why if you're a Teams customer, you maybe have noticed your team spins every week because it's doing updates, because they are pushing new features rapidly to keep up with what this has meant. I mean, this maybe is the primary way you communicate with your employees and staff. And we said that was a possibly good idea a year ago. It's a requirement as of March 1st. And Zoom became very popular and then became very unpopular as the security holes in Zoom were immediately apparent. And everybody looked at their IT department and said, don't we already own Teams? And the IT department had to say, yeah, it's been a part of that Office 365 move that we made you do a year ago. And so it got rolled out rapidly and in new ways.
And definitely for us, we combined organizations March 1st, had all of these plans to do face-to-face meetings and get to know everybody. And 3 weeks later, we were all working out of our basements and home offices. So Teams was a tremendously valuable tool that we had to leverage very quickly to try to get to know people face-to-face, even though it was through a camera. Typical things that people have used, obviously Teams for chat, Teams for video chat and meetings, which has really exploded. The capability of collaborating within a team has been a standard portion of Teams, and the phone calling capability to leverage audio communication. Really the four kind of key things that people use Teams for. In your interactions with clients, what has been the most impactful capability that they've talked to you about?
Yeah, I think the chat and the video meetings are the easy ones. The thing that has taken a little bit longer for some of our trusted clients is adopting Teams as the place where data is stored, right? Teams is really powered by SharePoint underneath the hood in OneDrive, but it is also, it can be your primary document repository. And that's a shift, right? A lot of our clients, and rightfully so, boot their computer up and have a S drive or a T drive or a V drive, or they are used to using a whole bunch of different apps to store and share data and files, but it's really the tool that does it. And I like this conversation because we're relating it back to what we're actually doing in our day-to-day lives. I mean, you and I have been collaborating on documents and presentations to sales teams, presentations to ownership, and we're both in the same PowerPoint at the same time, regardless of where we are, flying around that PowerPoint, getting it all done, which would have been, 8 to 10 emails back and forth with 10 versions of that PowerPoint being created. And instead, we're collaborating in real time, and in 20 minutes, we're done with that PowerPoint, and we know where it's stored, and we're not asking for it to be emailed around, and it's out the door. I mean, it's really become a part of how we interact. And if you're out there and have never taken a Word document or a PowerPoint document or Excel document, put it into Teams, and then had multiple people work on it at the exact same time, you are missing out on a huge step up in your productivity. I mean, how have you felt about, Jeff, some of the collaboration we've been able to do on some of these things?
It's been great. It's been super efficient. Even if I'm reorganizing slide orders, when you're working on that slide.
Don't delete my slide. Jeff, don't delete my slide again.
It's been super powerful, and it allows us to bring people who are working across 6 states and multiple offices, in homes and out in the field, into one set of information, one set of collaboration. It's been very powerful for us. So you mentioned that Teams continues to be updated, and I've kind of gotten a little bit of a habit every week or so. I hit the check for updates because I like the new shiny things. I want to see what's new in the tool. Yeah. I want to play with the new view. In a team of or in a meeting of a lot of people. What are some of the new features and upgrades that have come out over the last 6 months that we have found to be impactful?
Yeah, so I think that's a good tip to highlight. First of all, here's a tip. If you go up to your profile and kind of click on your icon, or hopefully you've got a pretty picture of yourself up there or your dog. If you click on that, one of the drop downs that will come down from that is check for updates. It's important to note that Teams updates in the background. It doesn't download a file. That's part of the value proposition around the entire Office 365 and Cloud Suite, is that you're getting new versions of the application without going to add, remove programs, uninstalling, or upgrading, or there's no lift and shift that your IT department needs to do. But it does actually install a new version. I'm sure you've walked into your office someday and Teams has said, you've got a new version today. Maybe it made you re-log in or something like that. It makes you angry for the first 5 minutes of your day, but then you've got a shiny new Teams that day. So do hit that check for updates button. If you do that and you still don't have the new feature that your friend at a law firm down the road has, understand that Microsoft has to update the back end of your Office 365 tenant as well. So there's 2 sides to it. The back end, you have to be in there, roll out for the new feature, and you must have the current front end client that has that new feature. So what have they added? They added custom backgrounds, right? Had to keep up with Zoom there. Got to be able to put yourself on, the Planet Hoth or your favorite spot, or whatever you might want to have with custom backgrounds. If you haven't figured out how to upload your own custom background, that's something that we can help you with. They added being able to pop out your chat, pop out now your entire Teams window, so that you can still have a chat going on separate from your meeting. They have increased the number of attendees to 300. They've added together mode, which places you in virtual seats in the classroom, which they say increases the human aspect of your interaction, because you can see everyone's faces all at once. Large gallery view, 7x7 has dropped, so about 50 people that can be live. They had some issues with that and had to pull that back for a little bit, but they're re-pushing that out. they're starting to work on, and some of to transition into new features that are coming. They're going to have virtual breakout rooms, similar to Zoom's breakout rooms. And they're going to have post-meeting transcripts with speaker attribution, meaning it will give you a full transcript of your meeting. So written out what was said and who said it at what point in the meeting. So you're going to have this full catalog of what was said and by who, all transcribed. Microsoft made an acquisition of a voice-to-text company that's driving the AI-driven technology behind this.
So I'll actually be able to read the nonsense that I said.
Correct.
That no one was able to keep up with.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I was in Microsoft's Envisioning Center in Redmond a couple years back. They were already working on some of this stuff 2 years ago. And one of the things that blew me out of the water was not only this transcript thing they talked about 2 years ago, but they talked about if there's a document on camera, so if there's a document on the table in a meetings enabled room, that it's going to be able to take a screen capture of what was on the page in that room and then convert that image to text as well. So you can hold a document up in your room and it's going to be able to pull it into Teams as well. So their roadmap of where they see this technology going is just phenomenal. And the rate at which they've done this is because they have all hands on deck investing in this platform.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's been pretty exciting to see all of these things come out. I think oftentimes functionality is important, and we talk about new features, but a super feature-rich application that maybe doesn't translate into how organizations are effective and how they get stuff done is maybe where some of the features and functionalities get lost. What are some of the most interesting things that you've seen in terms of how clients are using Teams, or what they're doing to collaborate differently, maybe share documents, maybe even build in some workflow that is having a real impact on how organizations are effective?
Yeah, we've seen lots of creative uses of it. Not only is it just maybe the way to get information out to people in a new way, sharing a link into Teams, posting it within a message board kind of style within a Teams channel. We've seen things like that. We've seen organizations that build things use Teams as a way to launch it on their phone and walk around a building and do virtual walkthroughs. I mean, this is part of our new post-COVID life is, the things that used to be able to do in person, you now have to find ways to do remotely. And that, the Teams app is more than capable, and you can both have a Teams meeting launched with video and even still be doing chat, and it goes up into a separate bubble. I mean, they've really developed a great multitasking form of tool. Internally, we've launched Teams for using all of our projects. So if you've done more of a long-term project with our organization, you're getting invited to a dedicated Teams channel to walk you through your project. That means that we're going to share the schedule of the project, the files, the sign-off. We're going to have all of your conversations with you over that, and it's going to be saved for history. So we're leveraging this in new ways as well to make our team more efficient and increase levels of communication.
Well, great. We actually have somebody looks like they're raising their hand that has a question to ask. So June, if you'd like to ask your question, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Hi, actually, no, I had put it in the chat, but didn't get an answer. We are just seeing the cover slide. Were there other graphics that were missing on this, or is this more a podcast? I guess I was looking for more demonstrations, and I guess my expectations may have been misinformed.
Okay, yeah, we are just kind of chatting through this, but we can definitely line up a time to maybe walk through some of these capabilities, do a screen share, and show you some of those. That we'd be happy to do that. Would you like us to reach out and see if that's something we should schedule?
Not personally. I mean, unless other people in my company would like to do that.
Well, why don't you let us know when this is over? We'd be happy to do that, or maybe even line up a different time as a group.
Okay, so this will just continue being your all's conversation?
It will be for the next 10 minutes or so.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I did a deep dive kind of into some of Teams' new features on a webinar about 3 weeks ago. And there I'm sharing my screen and walking through how to use the new rich text editor and some of the other more advanced features within Teams. I show using Poly, using Who, and some of the integrated apps, and that's a more demo style conversation. So we can email around the kind of link back to the webinar that I did that does the screen share to help people as well.
So let's talk a little bit about security. Security seems to be, it should be on everyone's mind. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of unfortunate examples with Zoom bombers and different things of people jumping into presentations. But talk about Teams and the security that's all wrapped around that with chats and video calls and the data.
Yeah, it's an important thing to highlight, and I had the opportunity to work with the chief security officer, one of the chief security officers of Microsoft in Chicago a couple of years back when GDPR really hit the forefront. We got a deep dive as a strategic partner around Microsoft's commitment to security. They were a leader in security from day one, and Azure is built on a platform that is HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant, SOX compliant, SSA 16 compliant. They've got all of your compliance checkboxes for you, and you can download any of those compliance documents. So if you're a regulated organization, just by being in the Office 365 world, if you get audited, you can just print out all of those compliance reports. And Microsoft was the first, and I still think is one of the only certified GDPR compliant massive public cloud providers. So, a company like Google that is in the business of stealing your data, they monetize your information and access to your data. It's going to be tough for them to cross over and check some of those boxes with an application like Google Meet. So Teams is inherently secure, and the platform it lives on was built with security in mind. Microsoft employs more security people than any of the top security software developers in the world, because they really do view themselves as a security organization. Inside the technology, things that you can do, certainly you can see any of the links that have been shared in the Security and Compliance Center side of Microsoft Office 365's administrative portal. But there are additional tools that we can provide or that you can upgrade to within your Office 365 environment. One of those is called Cloud App Security, which is in some of the higher end SKUs of Office 365. But what Cloud App Security will do is watch all of the Teams links that are being shared, all the files that are being shared, and it'll let you know if there's an abnormal amount of file sharing going on from one user, an abnormal amount of downloading of data from one particular user, or if your team shared a bunch of links and no one ever really downloaded them. So hey, here's a one-click way to close all those links off and not share them anymore. So sometimes people get nervous about just how collaborative Teams can be, and maybe we're sharing too much information, when in fact, Office 365 provides all the controls to be able to both be aware as a centralized IT department very quickly, and also lock and control all of that. You can even control if a Word document leaves your environment, that it just can't be opened unless the user authenticates, and they authenticate to the domain or the tenant that you're in. So you can make this really secure and make sure that if you're posting a financial review document in Excel into Teams, that no one other than those 4 people in your company are allowed to open that document. You just might have to take a few extra steps or maybe upgrade a SKU or two to get to that level of protection. So maybe Teams is where you share, not your deepest, darkest corporate secrets unless you've made those investments. But don't let that be the hindrance to collaborating. This tool is secure and can be made secure enough to have that data. It just might be something you want to work with your IT department or work with an organization like us to help you kind of make those next 3 steps in your team's security.
Yeah, and I think it's a conversation around longer term and strategy that is probably worth having. It's probably not much different than when email first came out and people were afraid to share information attached to an email because they didn't know where it would go.
Yeah.
Today, that same financial document, Excel document that's attached to an email, there's nothing holding and stopping somebody from sending that outside the organization to a bunch of other people, typing in the wrong Jeff within the organization and ends up in the wrong place. So it's a lot of the same governance that probably needs to be thought through, just with a different tool. And so to your point, try not to maybe overthink the shortfalls of the technology and collaboration. Think of the positive aspects and then put the things in place to stop maybe some of those things from happening.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of people will use the security fear, the fear of the unknown or the fear of not being able to do it right, is a reason to not leverage this tool. You have a terabyte of data probably on your account per user in your organization available to you. Like, you're paying for a significant amount of storage and capability. I guess I'm a technologist, right? I would say to the business, why are you not leveraging the thing you already have? And there's the other view, which is, well, prove to me, or I'm afraid of letting that much information be that collaborative. Like, no, let's not think about it that way. Let's think about, you own it, you should leverage it. It will make your team more profitable because they will be more productive. How do I enable that versus how do we fear enough that we don't ever use it in that way? Well, that stuff's more important. But yeah, if you're attaching stuff to emails, you're doing something more insecure than what you can do within Teams. And even the email side, we can secure that too. We can give you a little private button that locks down that file and make sure it never gets forwarded outside your organization. So Teams can do everything except preventing you from opening up your cell phone and taking a screenshot with your phone of what's on your screen. Other than that, we can probably protect it.
Yeah, that's good to know. So we talked a little bit ago, a little bit about Teams clearly can be a great tool within a team, within an organization, within a large company. But there is a probably not used as often capability of sharing a Teams channel or a team externally, whether that's with vendors, with partners, with clients.
Yeah.
Talk about maybe some of the security concerns that you've heard around that approach and maybe some positive capabilities that some organizations have seen from that.
Yeah, Teams does great cross-company interactions, depending on the settings inside your organization. This is a choice that your organization can make, and we can help work with you on. You know, you can type in anyone's email address inside of Teams. So if you're in Teams right now, you can click Add a Contact and type in the full email address of another person at another company. And if they have Teams and they have it enabled for external sharing, you're going to be able to talk to them. And that's how I communicate with some of our customers. They don't email me. They can send me a Teams message and say, hey, just wanted to let you know the project that we have going on with your team, they're doing a really good job. It's great to know, and I didn't need to wait for an email. Or they sent me a fun message about something going on in their life, and I can reply back. I mean, it is true one-to-one chat, and it works across organizations. Obviously, if you don't want that to happen, we can set up your tenant to not allow those types of invites and messages. And now for a bunch of our customers that are on this call are going to start sending me Teams messages today to get faster service. That's probably not going to work. Well, it probably will work, but please don't do it. But it can be collaborative across those walls in new ways. If we go back in time a year ago, it would have required redundant ADFS servers to be deployed in DMZ in your environment, and which is a bunch of letters. But basically, we would have had to run 2 on-premise Windows servers to allow authentication between 2 Active Directories of different companies. All of that went away overnight. They created a AD Sync tool that's less than a meg, and now you can invite each other to chat like you do on Facebook Messenger. So just huge steps in cross functionality and communication. And then Jeff, you're in our Microsoft Teams with me with Microsoft, right? So we can flip between the Gordon Flesch Company Inc.'s tenant and the Levity's tenant, and we can flip into Microsoft's. And this is how Microsoft communicates with its strategic partners, right? Because they don't want critical NDA data to be leaving their walls. And so we flip into the Microsoft tenant, where our Levity identity works in Microsoft's Active Directory, literally Microsoft Corporate's Active Directory. And within there, then we get access to all of the documents. They collaborate with us on all the roadmap items, all the links, all the latest and greatest news, all the notes from every meeting that we have is done in a shared OneNote that's posted right in there. You know, we're not emailing Microsoft. We're using Teams with Microsoft. And I think everyone would go, well, of course they are. They're Microsoft. But it is, even the company themselves, you know, it's eating their own dog food as it was, you know, that's how they communicate externally with people as well. Yeah. So if you have a critical business partner, think about maybe you should be in each other's teams and how you would use that to better communicate with each other. And that could be a vendor, a key supplier, could be us, could be another organization. Maybe your outside counsel is somebody that you should be able to have, you know, more quick access to, maybe your CPA. Like, think of all the critical professionals you may need. And they likely have Teams at this point. There's the good news. The cat is out of the bag. Everyone that you interact with, or I'd say 90% of them from a market share perspective, probably has Teams. And if you are the one to suggest it, you're going to be viewed as a forward-thinking, collaborative organization. And how does that better strategically position you in a time right now where being better than the competition is really important?
And then when you have to go find information or find a conversation, the search capability in Teams is fantastic.
Right.
It's hard to lose anything.
Yeah.
In Teams.
I would say one of my other favorite features, being new to an organization, new to a bigger organization, is the Who app. So there's apps that you can install on Teams. If you don't know that, there's an app store for Teams. And one of the apps that we had installed at corporate right when we joined was this Who app. So I can launch the Who app by typing who / up into the search bar at the top of Teams. And then I can put any name of anyone in Gordon Flesh and ask who reports to them or who their manager is. And being new to a company, not being able to, because of lockdown, get to meet a lot of people, that's quick at-hand information. If you're trying that right now in your Teams and it doesn't work, that means that either we need to enable the Who app or we need to tell Teams about your corporate structure. If you do that, your whole org chart can be baked into Teams and into Active Directory, and Microsoft's backend can be aware of your corporate structure. And now it enables collaboration at a whole nother level, because you can have a conversation with a manager knowing who their direct reports are. Super helpful as we became a new part of a new company.
Yeah, it really opens up the door for communication, collaboration, and information in ways that just didn't exist before.
Yeah, we got some questions.
We do.
People are alive.
Yeah, that's great. A question was asked about that presentation that you put together before.
Yeah.
What we can do is probably the best way is to include that in the follow-up thank you email that we send out,
Yeah.
just so that we get that to everybody. Because when we're done with this Zoom call,
all the chat will go away and people
Right.
will lose it. So we will definitely send out the link to that in the email. I think I do a pretty good job. It's demo based. There's definitely some technical folks on here that want to see that Who app that I just talked about. I walk through how to enable it and things like that.
Good. So we will get that put out there. Another question that came up: if someone has invited you to their Teams presentation in another organization and placed things in their folders in Teams, how can I access that?
So placing things in the folders, how can I access? So yeah, if the settings are all set up right, you should be able to access them. If they're sharing it with you and you can't access it, then it's a conversation we should have with that IT department that's sharing it, because the end user might be sharing it, but the external sharing has not been allowed on the tenant itself. So this would be a behavior you would see when a user is trying to collaborate, but the corporate IT department, whoever controls the Office 365 for that company, has not unchecked the box or checked the box to allow external sharing. So that could put you in that position.
I think there's other things to consider there as well. Like, you may be invited to a meeting where they present content.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily give you access to a team.
No, it doesn't.
They'd have to add you to that team as a permanent member of it.
Correct.
So I think that's the interesting thing that's part of Teams. It's not an all or nothing. So if you invite an external partner to a Teams meeting, that doesn't mean that they now have access to all the information that is in Teams.
No.
But if you want to provide information in a subsection, you sure can. So that's where I think having some conversations about strategy and not doing it on kind of a one-off situational kind of scenario really makes sense. And of course, we'd be happy to help work through that and provide some expertise to leverage those conversations and help determine those answers. Interesting one, and I don't know if we'll be able to necessarily answer this one, but specifically, but a user's having some challenges with an individual PC, a Mac or PC, that it sounds like video meetings are causing some performance issues, fan to run high, and disconnecting some things have helped that. And I think we've experienced some of that with people that maybe have older or maybe even a little underpowered devices, specifically laptops, that have run into that.
Yeah, so COVID made us all run home and maybe deploy laptops or maybe leverage those a lot more. Obviously you can tell, a big fan of Microsoft solutions and offerings. Teams also has all these new features that we talked about with new features in Microsoft tools. Also comes with some resource requirements with it. And I would agree with this commenter that I have definitely experienced where with a Teams meeting up, it's wearing on the machine, and I use a Microsoft Surface, right? Like, I'm literally using everything that Microsoft offers, and Microsoft is breaking Microsoft, which I think is the plot of a movie. But Teams is increasingly requiring more RAM and more CPU, and so with these new features comes, great responsibility, and it may mean that you need to look at some upgrades to hardware, which everyone's going to groan on this call, and that is kind of the Microsoft model of, yeah, we've had Windows 10 for a long time, and there's never going to be a Windows 11, but Windows 10 is continuing to upgrade, and so we're not getting the same like, oh, you're on Teams 9.5, well, you're going to need an i5 or better then to be on Teams, like, because it's so continuous. Maybe the updates can actually overrun what the capacity or capability of a computer is. That's an interesting pro and con to the world that we are now in. Certainly shutting down other applications while the machine is running, it is definitely a help. I have tried to run a Zoom and a Teams meeting simultaneously, and I was pretty sure my laptop was going to lift off. It is something that does take a few more resources. So there isn't a magic make Teams run faster. It would be, if you're in a really important meeting, maybe Teams should be, and your email should be the only thing that are open at that time if you can. But just some advice to give to folks.
Well, like I said, we have a lot to talk about. We could talk a lot more about things. Big thank you to everyone that joined. Bigger thank you to everyone that submitted a question or a comment. Thank you for that. There was a last question that was asked that I'd almost like to do a little poll if I could, in some way, shape, or form. A question was asked what the recommended methods to conduct Teams software training are for a group or groups of users at an organization. And I guess my question is, if there's enough people who feel like that is a question that's hanging out there, is what do we do to get the first couple steps in getting people knowledgeable and educated on this platform to start to drive awareness? I think we could run another session, run a separate webinar where we walk through the big things that we need to be trained on. We could get you started on that process. I don't know that we can answer that question. We can't right now. We're already 2 minutes over. But if you want to throw us a quick chat message to say, yes, you'd be interested in another webinar where we shared a screen and we talk through the big rocks that you'd want to start training on, and maybe even some tips or tricks to do that, please let us know quick in the chat. If we have enough interest, we'll maybe look to get that scheduled sometime in October so that you can start to think about how to train and how to get that rolled out maybe a little more effectively within your organization.
Yeah, it feels like a series maybe based on the interest here. And more people are commenting now as well, which is great. We definitely need to do a screen share where we are walking through it and maybe breaking teams down into it. I flip it around to you. How do you, and this is when I'm helping do VCIO work with some customers, I say, what is the last time you have successfully rolled out something in your organization? When's the last time your HR benefits changed? And it was really successful in your organization. Well, we did brown bag lunches for 3 weeks. We had open office hours where we had a subject matter expert available that people could just provide walk-in support for. Okay, well, if that worked for that might work for your technology rollouts too, because it's really a human thing. How do your people adopt new and absorb new information? So we can put out great webinars, and we will, but not everyone's a watch a webinar type person. Sometimes they need one-on-one time. Sometimes they want to be able to read it and print it out. Please print a lot of stuff right now. And sometimes people want to be able to be in a part of a group where they hear other people's questions and it's less than 10 people. And so there are lots of ways that we can do it. In the link that we're going to send out, I do reference a link that Microsoft has. So Microsoft has a 15 under 2 minute training video snippets. It's pretty light. It's pretty, how do I send a chat message? Teams light. I think if we rolled out something, we could go into, here's a whole day on how to have a really effective meeting, and how I share content, how I leave meeting notes behind, how we follow up on that recording, where that recording goes in stream. We could talk about that for an hour. And then we could do one on collaboration in Teams channels and the rich text chat that's available in there and enabling apps. We could have a whole hour on just my favorite apps that we run in Teams that leverage stuff. And so that all sounds like good ideas, and we'll dive into things like that.
And I think we have received enough interest in the chat window that we can set up maybe an initial, if you're the trainer, what information would you want to start training your teams on? If the timeline of that doesn't work out for you, or you'd rather speak specifically about your organization and not participate in a general webinar, please reach out to your account manager. We'd love to set that up individually with you and maybe even build out a custom program that would help meet your strategies. But again, thanks everyone for participating. We're 5 minutes over, which just great information, great questions. So thanks again for that. I'll look for your gift certificate, gift card for a Starbucks coffee so that you can have a hot cup of joe the next time that we do a coffee break series. Thanks again for attending. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend. Good luck wrapping up the quarter for anyone who's focused on that. Welcome to fall in the Midwest, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.